Welcome to the podcast. I'm Chris Graham. I'm talking here with a gentleman, Erik Simonsen from Waynesboro, here in my neck of the woods, gosh, I don't even know where to start with this story, Erik. Man, you just completed one of the more grueling events that there is in, I don't know, racing, anything else. The Spartan Killington Ultra up in Vermont about a week ago. Uh, let's start here. Welcome to the show, and tell us what is this event that you took part in? It's absolutely bonkers when I read about it.
Yeah, it is bonkers. So it is it's a obstacle course race put on by Spartan, which is a really probably the most popular obstacle course race company. So I did the 50K race, so about 31 miles up in Killington, Vermont. The thing about this course is it is widely known as the hardest course Spartan has, maybe worldwide, maybe just the US, kind of depending on who you ask. It's on a ski slope in Vermont. And so there's like 15 to 16,000 feet of elevation gain during the race. So it's mostly just climbing up and down huge ski slopes just for plenty of hours, just all day long.
And there's a time limit on this. They set ahead of time so that you're not out there for days, I guess. But uh, 14 hours, 45 minute time limit. Is that right?
Yeah, so depending on, there's a couple different groups that start at different times, but generally you have, 14 and a half to 15 hours time limit. And they're, on the way there, there's other time cutoffs that you have to meet.
Yeah.
At the halfway point, you have to be there by 2:30 p.m. There's another one at 4:30, 5:30, 7 o'clock. You have to make all these different cutoffs, or they will just take you out of the race. Um,
So you're climbing up and down a mountain. I'm sure there's because you might be going down a little bit as you're going up and kind of just all that. For that, you start. What time in the morning did this start last Saturday?
my heat started at 6:15 a.m.
And you finished in what? Oh, 12 hours and something, right?
Yeah, 12:26. 12 hours
12:20.
26 minutes was
So
my finish time.
sometime in the 6 o'clock p.m. hour. You've been hiking all day. Okay, this now we're going to tell people the headline of the video here already kind of gave away a little bit of the story here. You're 33 years old. You had a stroke a few months ago. Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay, you did this incredibly difficult event. You had a stroke at the age of 33. Okay, so maybe take us back to that. What happened? Have the doctors figured out what happened?
We haven't, we're still looking at a lot of things. I think to tell the full story of all of it, I think we need to go back to 2.5, 3 years ago. Me and my wife, I weighed almost 300 pounds. I was 290 pounds. She was very overweight too. We decided, hey, we need to do something. We're not healthy. She joined a kind of pseudo CrossFit gym. It's a functional fitness gym in Fishersville, Virginia. And I joined shortly thereafter. Um, maybe about, and we loved it, and we pushed ourselves hard, and we were really enjoying it. We were losing weight. About maybe 4 or 5 months in, I had something similar to a stroke. Um, and this would have been in 2023, like February. Um, and we didn't really figure out what it was. And we had an MRI and nothing showed it. So we kind of chalked it up to be like a weird seizure of sorts. Thought it was just kind of a freak thing that happened. Just recovered after a few weeks very quickly and continued on our lives. So fast forward, um, lost a ton of weight. Like I said, I started about 290 to 300 pounds. Right now, I'm 210 pounds. Became fit, found a love for fitness, found a family there, uh, home that, in the gym. And basically, fast forward to December 2024, and I had a stroke and full blown stroke. MRI showed big stroke. Um, Ambulance to the hospital, all you know, whole thing. So, still trying to figure out why it happened. We're doing some things still to try to figure it out. But yeah, at that point, it was, one time is it's a freak thing. Two times is kind of a pattern of sorts. It's like, oh, so there's something wrong. What prevents this from happening again? We're not sure. So kind of, my wife talked a lot about, what the future might look like, or, kind of the realization that life's short. And yeah, like we need to do things we love and focus on the important things in life, because, we don't know what's going to happen. I could have another stroke, in a month or a year or 10 years, who knows? So on my bucket list was to run this race. And so in the spring, I was like, you know what? We're going to do it this year. I wasn't ready for it. So I had to get to training quickly, which I did. But yeah, so stroke, happened in December, and he recovered quickly again, just
Uh-huh.
kind of similar to the first one, over a couple of weeks to a month, kind of became normal again, got back in the gym.
Yeah.
Um,
So had you been thinking about this event that you did last weekend? Had you been thinking about that before December of last year?
yeah, so my first Spartan race was August 2023. And there's something about the Spartan race that I just love. That was my first one, and there's something about just being in the woods on your own journey, on your own, time frame, not worrying about anything else in life, just whatever's in front of you, the next obstacle, the next, path of the woods you have to run through, that I just kind of fell in love with. So I knew that eventually I'd want to kind of dive into it more. And once I had my stroke in December, I was like, you know what? I need to really dive into this, put it on my bucket list of doing the Killington Ultra. And we're doing it this year. Whether I pass it or fail it, we're going for it.
Yeah. Gosh, I'll interject myself into this story just for a brief second here.
Yeah.
I also, for me, it was in 2014. That year I was turning 42. I also weighed right around 300 pounds. And I made a New Year's resolution. Nobody ever follows their New Year's resolutions, but I
Right.
made one. I said, I'm going to lose weight, and I set out to lose 75 pounds. I ended up losing about 100. Now I'm
Oh,
around I was 207 this morning. So,
okay.
I'm still around 100 less, but I lost all that in about a year.
Yep.
And I started running just because, I was doing like the exercise bike, and that got boring. And then I was doing the elliptical, and that got boring. So I started running around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
First time I did it, I couldn't. I ran a mile and it took me a week to recover. I was so tired. I was so blown up. But I eventually ran 3 marathons,
Wow.
um, and so now training for a marathon. There's similarities, of course. Yours marathons. I ran my fastest marathon in about 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours versus 12 hours. I
It's a
can't
little different.
imagine that.
A
I can
very different
slightly imagine.
race.
Yeah, I can slightly imagine it, but only so maybe now take us into okay, so I know when I was training for marathons, I would just, you start I could run a 10K, so that's 6 miles, and then you start building up and you try to get up closer to 26. How do you train for this ultra? What did you do?
So back in my first Spartan race, I trained mostly with running and a little bit of trail running. This one obviously has so much elevation that you're really not even running.
Hmm.
It's hiking uphill and running downhill just on repeat. So just running on flat land isn't actually going to help you very much. So I found, there's a hike kind of near me called Humpback Rock. Not sure if you are
Yes.
familiar with Humpback,
Yes.
but that was my training ground. Figured out that the length and the elevation of Humpback is similar to like the same, I guess, steepness of the race. 19 times.
Okay.
So, so I'm like, hey, this is going to be a good place to train. It's on a trail. It's got a lot of elevation. This is it. So I actually wrote down all of my training here on a sheet. Starting in about from May to September, I had run up and down humpback 78 times. Um, Quite a few of those were with a weight vest as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, I did a little bit of trail running. Um, I did the Chad workout. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it's kind of a CrossFit esque style where you're just doing 1,000 box step ups. That's a 20-inch box.
Okay.
It's very cut and dry. It's just keep stepping on that box until you get to 1,000. So did 11 of those. Actually, also went to my wife and I went to Colorado over the summer as kind of like a mini excursion without the kids. And we went up the Manitou Incline a couple times, which is a very famous hike. It's even more steep than Humpback or, you know, similar to parts of Killington.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, all of my training was really just hiking.
Interesting. So when you said hiking up hills and then running down hills, I ran the Charlottesville Marathon several years ago, and that was Charlottesville. I should have known. I'm a UVA graduate. I should have remembered Charlottesville's hilly. Um, Running up the hills isn't so bad. It was running down long hills for weeks afterwards. The bottom of my quadriceps locked up. Like I couldn't hardly walk for a few days afterwards. So running down, and I imagine in this, not only your training, but then obviously at Killington, I can only imagine that's got to be a big focus of the training is to make sure that, that area which most of us don't use on a, consistent long-term basis to have to, those are like shock absorbers almost. I kind of realized that's got to be a focal point there.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's it's kind of more of a skill almost in some ways than just a like running, getting used to it.
Yeah,
Your joints really have to adapt to be able to absorb that shock,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and your feet really have to be accustomed to stepping lightly while still going quickly, which is a strange thing to say, but it's really kind of how it works. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just do it enough until your body just figures out how to do it, recognizes how to step quickly, how to step efficiently, and the muscles and the joints just strengthen up to a point where you can handle it.
So tell me about your thoughts as, okay, so, maybe Friday during the day before last Saturday. You've done all the training you can do. You kind of got to rest and get ready, eat properly and hydrate properly, everything else. But what was your mindset Friday night, knowing when you wake up Saturday morning early that, man, you're gonna be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole week leading up to it was tough. I kind of settled down on my training because you want to rest before the race. And that whole week was pretty nerve wracking, really. I felt like I was just sitting there twiddling my thumbs.
Yes.
Um, and so that was hard to deal with. And when kind of the day leading up to the race, a lot of times in my head, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, am I even going to finish? Like, we're spending all this time and effort, to go to Vermont and run this race. And am I even going to finish? I don't know. Like, the goal was to finish. That was it. And I was feeling so unsure of myself. But, it's just one of those things where the time comes and you just start. And yeah, you just get into it and it just starts and you just kind of let it guide you almost.
Your brain takes over. But I had similar thoughts, my first marathon especially. All right, I never ran 26 miles. My last training run that was of a long run was 20 miles. And then that week, yeah, you're supposed to rest, but you're like your brain's like, no, no, you're not supposed to rest. You're supposed to keep going, and that makes it even more nerve-wracking. And then, yeah, I certainly woke up. went to bed Friday night and woke up Saturday morning. Am I going to finish this? I've been making this a goal for so long, and now am I going to be able to finish? All right, so was there any point during this event that did any doubt creep in at all? Any like I know in my first marathon I had a calf cramp that for about a mile or so kind of, I was kind of limping a little bit. Anything like that pop up during this?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
So yeah. So the race started great. I was feeling great. I was in a pack of people and we were just trudging along. It was going well. About probably 7 miles into the race, both of my adductors, my kind of inside of my groin started cramping both at the same time. And I was out of pickle juice because that's what I was drinking to, it's kind of a runner's trick, I guess, to get rid of cramps. And I was like, oh crap, this is, I'm only, not even a quarter into the race and I'm cramping and this is gonna get worse and it's not going well.
And you're out in the middle of nowhere, I'm
Right,
sure.
yeah, you're just in the middle of the woods or on a ski slope. And so I mean eventually that kind of wore off. I was drinking a lot of electrolytes in my pack that I was wearing, and thank goodness that went away. And I was actually cramp free for the whole rest of the race somehow,
Good, good,
so
good.
that went well.
That's got to be scary. I mean, I know it's scary because in my case, now a marathon is, there was the Richmond Marathon. So you're in a city and they have water stations every mile after a certain point, like 7 or 8 miles in. So, at least you could, and you're also in a group of people. You're out there, there's no water stations out in the wilderness.
Right.
There's
Well, they
nobody
they did
keeping
have
you.
water
Well,
stations
okay.
periodically,
Okay, 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 good.
which is great. But there's a lot of sections that you're just kind of in the middle of nowhere. The good news is with Spartans, people are really helpful for each other. Where if someone's cramping, you're going to offer them a salt tab or something to help them, and people are really help each other out. You're all in the same boat. You understand each other's pain. It's People are very good about helping each other. So
So, as you're, in your mind, you've been out there for several hours. I mean, at some point, did it hit you? I'm going to finish this.
yeah, so I was very aware of the cutoffs, which kind of tell you how far or behind you are. So the first cutoff was at 2 p.m. You had to finish the whole first lap. I came in about 1 o'clock and I was pretty shocked. I'm like, ooh, I'm an hour and a half ahead of schedule. This is far better than I thought. And then in my head, kind of got these like, what if I do really well? Like, what if I, finish faster than I think? And then it's quickly after you're climbing these big uphills and you're like, no, my goal is just to finish. Like, and I need to not change that goal because this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
But I
don't
mean,
get
there were
greedy, right?
definitely times where I felt myself slowing down considerably, just wondering when it will end.
hmm hmm describe your feelings, emotions, etc. when you're finally finishing.
So the way it works is finish at the kind of start finish line is the same area.
hmm
So my wife is there. She watched me go. She's watching me come in, and I see her, and I just kind of have this look of like I've made it. This is I'm doing it. I'm going to finish. I'm right here at the finish line. There were a couple obstacles right at the end. One of them was a sandbag carry. So you have a very large 60-pound sandbag that you have to carry up this hill,
Oh
very steep
gosh,
hill, and back down. And that almost killed me at the end. Just,
that's
you know,
cruel.
yeah, I think that they put it at the end was the cruel part. In the middle, I could have done it fine and gotten
Yeah.
through it. But the very last thing is just this huge sandbag carry. And it's just, oh, why is it here? But
Describe.
there were a lot of emotions at the end for sure. And then the kicker of it is that in order to go get your medal after you finish, you've got to go back to the registration tent to get your medal because they have to verify, that you completed it all. And so when I got my medal, he told me that I got first for my age group,
Yeah,
which was absolutely shocking to me because I had no idea. You don't know who's in your age group and who's not. And
right.
there were a lot of people that were ahead of me, and obviously in other age groups, but I had no way of knowing that. And so I was completely shocked that I got first in my age group. So that was kind of just, you know, bonus feelings and emotions and all that good stuff.
I know because people train for this for years in some cases. I mean, this is not, and you did it in a few months after having a stroke. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. About 50% of the people that start the race, the 50K, finish,
hmm
whether that be getting cut off, from those cutoff marks, or a lot of people, go through the halfway point and they're just like, I don't think I can physically, So yeah, people, you hear stories about people training and, failing 3, 4, or 5 years and then finally finishing. And it's like, it's everything to finish.
hmm
So it felt really crazy and really surreal to finish and get first in my age group on my first go round.
So first go round, you putting it that way, does this imply that there are future go rounds?
Very likely. So it's one of those things. I'm someone who I love to reach for very challenging goals. I like to find my limits, which is obviously why I chose this. And man, this race you will find a limit. Like it's very certain that there's a limit somewhere, and you will hit it. So it's definitely satisfies my thirst for that. So
I
I'll,
would
I'll
say
very
you
likely do it next year.
I would say if you survive get a quarter of the way through and you have I mean you're dealing with groin cramps and you're just like, "Oh, you know what? I'm still got three quarters going. I don't have pickle juice. I'm going to do it." Yeah, you've already experienced some bad stuff there, right? So that's all. So are there other courses that you would like to try to tackle?
Yeah, there's definitely other courses. I think I might be doing one in New Jersey in the spring. That's one of it's like got the second most elevation of Spartan races. It's got I think 9 to 10,000 feet of elevation. Um, I'm really into the ones with elevation. I'm not much of a like flat runner. I think if I ran a road marathon, I would probably struggle honestly, just because I'm not a runner. I'm a hiker and a downhill runner.
That's
Um,
awesome. It's got to be an advantage that you live here and have access to the mountains to train in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something that, maybe you take for granted sometimes. You hear stories about the other people doing the Killington Ultra and training for it, and they've just got stair steppers as their, workout. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, this is so much better to actually be in the mountains, to be moving around and to have that training ground.
I can only imagine too. So your wife was the one who reached out to me to say, hey, this happened recently. I know in the case of my wife, at least in terms of like when I would go to marathons, the wives are so supportive. She would be on the course, and I would run by and that's only 3.5 or 4 hours. Your wife's out there on a mountain for, I guess, 12 hours while you're out, climbing too. So. And you mentioned also that traveling to Colorado was part of, an excursion that helped you train some. I imagine that she's a very important part of your team in that sense.
Absolutely. She's super supportive of everything I do. She pushes me, and she also keeps me on the cautious side sometimes when I need to be.
Yeah, yeah.
She's yeah, she's definitely a big part of this for sure.
That's awesome. So, I mean, as we're wrapping up here, I mean, there is this part of this where it's not only this amazing accomplishment without what happened to you 9 months ago. This is an amazing accomplishment, but gosh, I mean, to think that I think this is inspiring just to people to say in general, look, something that can happen to you out of the blue like a stroke doesn't have to be something that knocks you down. It can get right back up like you did.
Yeah, it's just a matter of kind of putting things in perspective and going out and doing the things you love. And just because something happens to you doesn't mean, that it's forever, that you can't, go in a direction that's positive and, do the things you love.
Well, very good. Well, Erik Simonsen, thank you so much for your time, and good luck. And maybe we'll talk again after you accomplish one of these ultras again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.